A change of heart for the NBA. The coronavirus spiking in the South. We'll have a very special guest who is from the beautiful Lone Star State of Texas to join us and update us on what is happening now with his state of Texas and the state of sports in the Lone Star State. What is happening now with hockey as it's beginning to make its triumphant return? I'm Jonathan Perriente, the Beast of the East. My co-host is the Mouth of the South, John Schiavone. We are Downtown Sports. Let's dive in.
We're going to have Patrick Creighton in the second part of our show, the host of Late Hits on 98.7 FM in Houston.
97.5.
I'm probably going to screw that up when I intro Creighton later. But we're going to have him. It's going to be great. And we're going to talk about all of what's going on in the South with sports in Texas and Ezekiel Elliott has coronavirus and who on the Texans has coronavirus. He'll have that info for us. We'll get the inside scoop from him. But for right now, I think it's a little time to talk a little bit of hockey. So this is a new type of episode that we're doing. Usually when we have a 3-segment thing, we have like an interview in the middle and 2 segments. This is a 3-segment episode. When Pat comes on, he's going to be with us, talking with us. We're not interviewing him. It's not going to be like that. So when Creighton comes on, we're going to find out everything that's going on in the South. But for right now, we have to talk hockey. And as you can see, John, you guys can't see it in podcast land, but John knows exactly what I'm showing him.
The bucket.
Please, no more.
I'm going to try within this 15 minutes to not need this bucket once. I had it steam cleaned by Stanley Steamer. They came, I paid $99 when they said, what do you mean you need to clean a bucket? I showed them the bucket and they were like, yeah, you're going to need to pay me more. So 15 minutes on the clock. Ladies and gentlemen, here is the state of the NHL as reported by Downtown Sports. John, let's dive in.
Wow.
Start that clock, Shane.
So 10 cities now. This is part of hockey's return. We were always wondering what cities were going to host possibly the NHL's return to play.
So since a lot of people might not know, now NHL is 4th place. Let me just say this. By the end of the segment, you're going to understand why we, I think as a collective, think that the NHL is actually going to be the 3rd place sport in popularity by the time all of this is over. But just to refresh people's memories, if they didn't tune into your rants, they should. But if they didn't, John, let's recap what's going on. All I know is I heard Las Vegas a whole bunch and 24-team postseason tournament.
So let's go back in time. So let's go back in time with that. Yeah, the 24-team tournament, 12 teams on the East and 12 on the West will play. What will happen for the first 4 seeds? They will play a round robin to eventually determine who the 1, 2, 3, 4 seed would be. Teams 5 through 12 on each side would play in a best-of-5 tournament to determine eventually the final 16. But the one question that was on everyone's mind was what cities would be hosting this tournament. And now we have some names that have come forward. The NHL has just entered its 2nd phase of its restart plan back on June the 8th.
So what was phase 1 of the restart plan? What are the phases of restart for NHL? I mean, I know we have 4-phase restarts in New York State and in other states around the country. What are the 4 phases for NHL restart?
Well, it involves the following: training, getting back on the ice, training in a facility, doing the training camps, all the ways that the NHL players can get back into playing shape. And also, again, it depends on what cities they're in that have done their reopening. Have some of them moved ahead? Have some of them maybe been a little behind? We've already seen the states in the South that reopened immediately, and now the coronavirus has spiked there. So right now, whether that's going to affect anything, we don't know yet. But right now, 10 cities have been revealed as potential places for the reopening for hockey. First, we'll begin in Canada. 3 areas of Canada have confirmed that they can be considered hubs for the tournament.
All right, what we got?
Vancouver, and Toronto. So those are the 3 cities for Canada. For the United States, 7 cities have put their names forward: Chicago, Dallas, Columbus, Las Vegas, Los Angeles, Minneapolis, St. Paul, Minnesota, and Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I think this is a very fair amount of these are good cities so far to come forward with this plan.
Columbus is a good city.
Columbus, Ohio.
Where coronavirus is spiking, that's a good city?
Well, Ohio hasn't had in Ohio, it's not been spiking nearly as much as it is in the South. Ohio's in the
True,
Midwest.
but Columbus is a hotbed. It's not like Columbus doesn't have it.
What's worse, Columbus or Cleveland? If you had to compare the two cities, which is worse? Which would be the more wider spread, Columbus or Cleveland?
Cleveland, only due to population density, I think spread around the population, you would say is the same.
Yeah.
I don't know that number.
Between Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, I can tell you this, Pittsburgh has had way lower numbers than Philly. So
Yeah.
Pittsburgh, it made sense.
Well, Philly's on the coast, so.
Then when you look at Chicago, the numbers have gone down in Illinois in a tremendous way. So I think now this makes sense. Texas is our concern because now it's gone up in Texas, including in Dallas, which is a very big worry. Los Angeles is still seeing spikes. That's been the worst county hit by COVID for California.
Mm-hmm.
And Minneapolis, we'll have to see what happens there because they are still coming off of the protests for the murder of George Floyd from about 3 weeks.
You know what? The NHL, and I'll just say this, and this is an unfortunate byproduct, but this is what racists should consider before they murder people in streets. Minneapolis would have been a great city because of proximity to Toronto, and that would have been the two-city bubble right there.
Minnesota's a big hockey town.
Yeah, exactly. Remember the Minnesota North Stars before they became the Dallas Stars.
And then you have the Minnesota Wild. The Minnesota Wild, the hockey team there.
So far, I think we're about 5 minutes in, no bucket yet. Here's the thing. Here's what'll make me get the bucket is if the NHL all of a sudden announces Minneapolis as the city when the civil unrest that's been going on there due to the murder of George Floyd is still and should still take precedence there. If I'm the NHL, here's what I would do. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau of Canada has said that NHL players can travel into Canada and not have to be quarantined for 14 days.
Yes.
They would go to whatever bubble city they're in, and that would be it, right? If I were the NHL, and this would honestly, if you really wanted to make a little bit of a protest move for social justice, this might be an idea for the NHL to take. Do the season in Canada. Do it all in Canada. Not that I don't love America and I don't want to see the National Hockey League be in America, but
hockey technically did come from Canada. That's really hockey. That's their sport in Canada.
The United States has had a foothold on all four major North American sports. If the NHL decided to host their entire playoff in Canada, what kind of ramifications would that have for the league financially, being that they would now be operating completely outside the United States?
Yeah, it would. What it will do greatly, though, is really bring the country of Canada itself together, because this is something Canada, they live for hockey. They can't go a year without hockey. It's part of their blood.
Can the owners legitimately do that? But can they
everywhere you go throughout the whole country of Canada is hockey.
All right, so where are the actual NHL offices located? That's the first question we need to answer. Where are they located exactly? What is the NHL's address? What they stamp all of their official business?
Well, they have 3 different addresses. The New York one is in Manhattan, 1185 Avenue of the Americas in New York, New York. So right there in Midtown. You have the Toronto office on Bay Street, 50 Bay Street, and then you have the Montreal one in McGill College.
2 of the 3 main offices for the NHL operate in Canada. Is the NHL considered an American company owned? Is it, or an American entity, or is it considered a Canadian entity or an international entity? Because that would really determine exactly how they could operate in terms of their reopen and how they do business.
Well, technically, the NHL itself was founded in Montreal in 1917. So this was founded originally in Montreal.
So is the NHL able to do and operate business outside of the United States completely as an entity? Are they able to do something like that? That's the only real question I have. Because if the answer is yes, the answer to me seems simple. Put it in Canada. There's not civil unrest up there right now. The coronavirus has not affected Canada as badly as it's affected the United States. Toronto as a city has not been affected like any of the other cities in the United States that we are talking about have been affected. If you could actually host this in Canada, that is the safest place for the NHL players to be. Coronavirus is not a big deal there. That is one of the safest places for them to be in general. No matter what race, color, or creed you are, Canada does seem to treat you fairly. No matter what, Canada as a country is protected by the United States military. So it's not as if you're going to be in a foreign land and worry about terrorists coming to get you. You have the security of being the country north of America. So that's not a problem. The only thing that I could see that would prevent the NHL from completely operating this new revamped season for 2020 in Canada is American business interests, and can the NHL be or run outside of the United States?
That will be very interesting. And I think as we really dive more into when the NHL enters its next couple of phases, we'll really have a better answer on that. Right now, the NHL is in phase 2. Phase 3 will be July 10th, which will be the start of training camp. And of course, medical and safety conditions allow, and the NHL and the Players Association have to come to an agreement on resuming play. Mm-hmm. So July 10th right now is the plan for phase 3. And then eventually phase 4 would be the actual return of the season and play should resume. But right now you like where plans are going. You like that the NHL is kind of getting these ideas out there and seeing what cities could realistically host a possible playoff.
So, John, now, where do you think these playoffs should be hosted? I mean, I'm all for Team Canada right now. I sound like a TNA promo, but I'm all for Team Canada right now. Where do you think, John? Where do you think the NHL has the best chance of resuming its season?
It's a really good question. And I'm surprised it's not been mentioned here, seeing that now the virus has gone down right here in our neck of the woods. Why not New York? Why not at MSG?
Maybe not MSG.
Or in Barclays, perhaps.
Maybe not at Barclays. Maybe not even at Nassau Coliseum. How about Continental Airlines Arena in New Jersey that nobody's using right now?
That could be interesting.
Taking the Meadowlands before the football season. Or how about this? Outdoor hockey, ladies and gentlemen. Why don't we outfit the Meadowlands to have a rink?
The winter, kind of like a winter classic type of
a winter classic NHL tournament.
That's a very nice idea. We've seen states where it's warm that have pulled off a winter classic. We've seen California do it. I believe we've seen Texas do it. So if they can do it in the warm, I'm sure New York could pull some. Maybe New York and New Jersey can.
New Jersey, specifically because New Jersey is doing just as well as us in terms of the virus, in terms of reducing spread and all this other stuff. But their actual case numbers are lower. And the entire area around the Continental Airlines Arena and the Meadowlands Giant Stadium over there, that area, aside from the 2 places and maybe 1 or 2 restaurants or bars, is completely secluded.
Yeah. You have to
there's
see them.
No one for miles if there's nothing going on there.
Yeah, you have options there. You could do it at the Meadowlands. You could do it at the at Continental Airlines Arena. You could even, if you want, maybe even do it in the Devils Arena in Newark. It's all there. You have options.
The only reason I would say not Newark is because Newark, the city, is sort of set up like New York City in terms of population density, buildings, people. That's why I don't like the Chicago idea either. That city was sort of built in the same style as New York. I'm trying to think of places that offer open space, that offer places to play where people aren't around. That's the concern. The one thing that I'm going to say, and this is for all sports, and we'll talk about this in the next segment coming up. We're about to wrap this up. We're about to hit time. The one thing I'm going to say is this. Every sport, before they come back, really needs to just sit and think about player safety, staff safety. That should be the first and foremost thing on people's minds. Unfortunately, as we go through all these talks, whether we're talking NHL, whether we're talking NBA, whether we're talking MLB, whether we're talking any sport right now, player health and player safety seems to be the last thing holding up a contract. And what's holding it up is money, perks, things I can and can't do, having to live in a bubble, feeling restricted, and losing salary. These are the things that are being talked about in terms of can sports return or not. And nobody's talking about actual player safety. We're going to hit more on that when we come back. We got words to say. So, Johnny, before we hit the break, I'll let you wrap a nice little bow on this NHL segment.
This will be what the NHL decides and the decision they have to make. They really have to think long and hard about the right city to host this tournament, which city is very well prepared to handle it right now in the current situation we're in with COVID-19, and the implications it's going to have as well. These are decisions the NHL really has to sit down at the table over the next couple of weeks and really formulate carefully. But right now, let's take a break. When we come back, we will be joined by a very special guest to update us on how the coronavirus is affecting the Lone Star State of Texas, affecting all sports in that vicinity. We will have our guest join us right on the other side of this break. Be back, everybody. Welcome back to Downtown Sports. I'm Jonathan Perriente, the Beast of the East, alongside my co-host, the Mouth of the South, John Schiavone. And now as we head to our featured guest segment, a lot of things are happening in the world now. The COVID-19 virus has now struck one of the several states in the South that had reopened too soon. And now we're about to find out how it's affecting that area. And here with our special guest, the Mouth of the South, John Schiavone, to introduce.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just going to cut straight to the chase. The number one sports talk radio personality in Houston. He is the host of Late Hits, 98.7 FM in Houston. You could also hear it in a bunch of different places online. It's usually 7 to 9 p.m. Central Time, but except for Tuesdays. So he's right here with us. Ladies and gents, Patrick Creighton. Pat, what's going on, man?
What's up, Mal? By the way, we're 97.5. 98.7 is you guys in New York. That's the
That's
ESPN.
Kiss FM. That was Kiss FM.
Which is funny because Stephen A.
ESPN.
was down here at our station last year and cutting a promo for us. It's like, you're listening to ESPN Houston 98.7. Oh, wait, that's my show. Hold on, let me do this again.
It's like, there's the numbers, man. All right, so
it was kind of funny just because he did that thing while he was cutting promos with us.
So John, I mean, you mentioned Texas. Shane, where's that clock, man? We got to get that clock up on the screen share. Oh my God, 30 minutes. So this is the second part of our bases loaded show. So clock is starting right now. And John, take it away, man. What's going on in the state of Texas? Pat, you need to help me with this because you're the only one that's down there. We need to determine fact from fiction here. So, John, what do we got?
A lot of things are going on right now. First, we had Memorial Day. Things were lifted. Texas started to reopen. Okay, you think things were going well. Texas had everything under control. Then we had the protests of George Floyd. They had his burial service in Texas. And now all of a sudden, the coronavirus has resurged and resurged in a big way. 4,400 cases today alone in the state of Texas. And now as Governor Greg Abbott is beginning to now have to make some decisions now, and as sports are also being thrown into this mix, now you have athletes from the Texans, from Cowboys, from all walks of life in the Lone Star State that are now testing positive.
So, Pat, I mean, who's positive on the Texans? We don't have that information yet so far. Maybe you do. B, what's going on in your new adopted home, man? It's like you left New York and all this is going on in come on, what's happening?
Well, what's happening is the governor down here, Greg Abbott, he wants to open up the state. He's, he following more along the lines of what President Trump wants. They're trying to open up the state of Texas very quickly. Our Lieutenant Governor, Dan Patrick, has been on record saying that older people should be willing to die for the economy. So the government management
Gotta love the
here
air
in
quotes.
Texas basically says, screw you, we're going to open. If you get sick, better have insurance. Good luck. And that's how it is. Now, we haven't had, like, as John was saying earlier, 4,400 cases today. That's a lot for Texas. We haven't had the high number of cases down here that other states, especially you guys up in New York, and you guys have been hammered with COVID-19. We haven't had anything close to that. And I can't tell you why that is or why that isn't, because I'm not a super brainiac scientist. Maybe the guys from NASA can figure that out. But we haven't had the infection rate. We certainly haven't had the mortality rate that you guys have had in New York. And that's why they feel comfortable opening up the state. They think that, hey, we'll get the economy going again, and we're going to have more cases. We're going to have more positives, but they don't think we're going to have more death, like a huge number of deaths. So that's just the state of Texas right now. You mentioned about the Cowboys. Ezekiel Elliott's name got mentioned. He's not happy about that, by the way.
What did he say about what did he say about himself getting mentioned in the report in the first place?
He dropped the idea that hello HIPAA violation, which it may not necessarily be a HIPAA violation, but somebody had contacted his agent and asked for basically confirm or deny Ezekiel Elliott tested positive for COVID-19, and the agent confirmed. So Zeke is not happy that it's out there, that his name is out there, but a handful of Cowboys have tested positive. A handful of Texans have tested positive. They haven't released the names. Not a surprise. The Texans don't release, who's starting on the offensive line until an hour before game time. So the Texans are a very buttoned-down organization. I know Bill O'Brien, super power ego control guy. You're surprised. But we had an issue last week at University of Houston where UH had suspended all physical activity. They had the football teams in there doing workouts, and I think 6 Houston Cougars players tested positive for COVID-19. So they shut everything down. This is going to be the challenge of every sports organization. Doesn't matter, football, baseball, basketball, hockey, whatever it is. You're going to have multiple people on teams test positive for COVID-19. You can't have that many guys breathing on each other, sweating on each other, hitting on each other. You can't have all that and think that you're not going to have incidents of positive tests. They have to be prepared that if there's a positive test or there's multiple positive tests, they're going to isolate those players until they are, virus free. And in the meantime, they're going to have to bring in other guys. In baseball, they talk about the taxi squad that would give you a total roster of up to 50 players to pull from for your 26 guys, right? So you're going to have your 26 or 28, man, what do they change the roster to this year? But then you'd have a taxi squad that would bring your total up to 50 because you got a lot for injuries and you've got a lot for positive tests. In the NFL, you're going to have a lot of issues. How could you not have guys? You have 53-man rosters and all those guys hitting, banging, close quarters. How could you not wind up with positive tests? If the idea is, we have, 6, 8, 10, pick a number. Mm-hmm. If we have X number of positive tests, we're going to shut down. Well, then you can't start because there's no way that you can allocate. Hey, you know what? If we have 10 tests, we're going to start everything up. We're going to spend all the money. We're going to get all the logistics and everybody in place. But if we have 10 positive tests, that's it, game over. There's no way to do that. Either you start it and you run it to the end or you don't start. And there's too much money at stake for them not to start.
It's crazy because right now, The NFL still thinks, the season could still go on as normal. You had Governor Abbott even say, we could put people in the stadiums by football season. We could fit maybe 25% in capacity.
No, John, no. Right now, they can put up to 50% in an outdoor stadium, which I would bet by August 1st will be no restriction.
No.
Yeah.
No.
By August 1st, they've already gone from 25 to 50. We now have restaurants at 75%. We're going to be outdoor stadium, which means, NRG is going to have to actually open the roof. Now, that's going to be a sight because they never open the roof. We got to see that puppy still works. But you open the roof, you become an outdoor stadium, 75%. By August 1st, it'll be 100%. Texas is going to be one of those states, Texas, Florida, Arizona. These are the states where they are opening up come hella high water. That's how it's going to be. Now, look, again, I know it's different in New York. You guys have had so many more cases. And look, to be real, New York City, your population and population density is so much greater than it is anywhere in any of these southern states. Mm-hmm. So what you guys have to deal with is so much more difficult than what we have to do. But that being said, a lot of these governors down here, we haven't had the kind of issues they've had in the Northeast, they've had on the Pacific Coast. We're going full throttle. And I'm telling you, it might not even be August 1st. It might be sooner. We'll be 100%. We'll have no restrictions. Maybe they'll tell you to wear a mask, but that, I think, is going to be a business decision where individual businesses are going to determine whether you need to wear a mask in their businesses as opposed to a government decision. That's kind of like Texas is like that. They don't want the government to tell business what to do. They're going to let business decide what business wants to do. Right now, you can go to a poker house and play cards, no mask, no gloves. You do whatever the hell you want. Now, the guy who's the dealer, he's got a mask and he's got gloves. But you don't have to wear anything.
Wow. Unbelievable. That's scary. That's like playing Russian roulette with your own citizens.
Yeah, and then I think they're playing Russian roulette with the leagues too. Think about it. Is the NBA has the bubble plan for Orlando? The plan is for Disney World to open, I believe, July 15th, right? So about a month from today, Disney World is supposed to open for guests to come, ride rides, do Disney, meet Mickey Mouse. I mean, I think Mickey Mouse is probably the best PPE, and the Mickey Mouse costume is probably the best PPE you could ever have in the country right now. But other than that, the bubble plan, at least to me, was about, okay, we're going to be in Disney World. No one else is going to be there. There's nobody there for Miles. I put a rant up about this the other week. Nobody's going to be there for Miles. Everything that was good about this Disney plan has been completely destroyed by the idea that these parks are going to open. So if you're going to open the parks, you're going to open the hotels for paying guests. How are you going to house the entire NBA at Disney if you have paying guests and the park running?
That tells you how big Disney is. Now, here's something for you. The plan from the beginning was always that Disney would be open while running the NBA games and postseason. It was always going to be that way, and it was always talked about that from the beginning. Now, that didn't necessarily come out in the public to us, but as we learned later on, if you guys want to talk about what's going on with Disney and the NBA, talk to my buddy Keith Smith with Yahoo. Dude, that guy, he was the first person on it. He has had more details on that than anybody. I talk to him probably 3 times a week. Great dude. But the thing about it, Disney could be running the NBA. Disney could be doing more than just the NBA. Disney is so large a property that it can hold 22 teams and open for business, and they'll never see each other. Imagine that. Imagine this. Imagine you basically are getting a paid vacation at a 5-star resort where for the next 3 months, they're going to wait on you hand and foot. All right? You want filet mignon with a lump of crab cake and hollandaise sauce, somebody's going to bring it to you. Done. No questions asked. You want bottle service coming to your room? Done. No questions asked. Whatever you want, they're going to do it. One catch, and this is the biggest catch for the NBA guys. No side. That's the part they really don't like. Unless, of course, you're Kyrie, and then you don't like it that maybe you wanted to go with your team, as Kendrick Perkins said, that Kyrie wanted to go with the Nets to Disney. The NBA said, no, we're trying to limit how many people for player safety. So now Kyrie, who wasn't going to play anyway, wants to lead the charge of nobody should play, in which case you'll get the NBA G League championship.
And then you get Carmelo Anthony saying the same thing. Who was John, who else was in that crew?
Dwight Howard.
Oh,
Avery
wow.
Bradley.
Your favorite player, Dwight Howard, Pat.
Avery Bradley, who's one of the other top leaders with Kyrie Irving. They run this little coalition.
I mean, so they're in there saying whatever. But, I mean, the NBA is going to start. If LeBron James says we're playing, they're playing. I think
it's funny because Austin Rivers, Pat Beverly kind of said the same thing. Yeah, if LeBron says we're playing, we're playing.
Yeah, I mean, because I don't see how you
the guys who aren't going to play, I don't buy this idea that this huge number of star players aren't going to play. That's a bunch of.
We're like back to square one.
Yeah, we're pretty much back to square one almost, but we're not with the NBA. This is not going to be a situation where they're not going to play.
NBA is going to play, period, at the end. There's too much money on the table. It's 8 games in a postseason. They want to have a champion. LeBron wants to win a title. Giannis wants to win a title. The guys on the Clippers, they want to win a title. Pascal Siakam wants to win a title. James Harden wants to win a title. I would think Donovan Mitchell, but, you never know. He's probably too busy being a bitch about, whether Rudy Gobert gave him corona or he gave Rudy Gobert corona. We don't know, neither do they, but he's been a real bitch about it. So
that team's going to fall apart in the second they even get on the court. I would be surprised if they put Gobert and Mitchell on the floor at the same time together.
Well, they fall apart in the playoffs all the time anyway, so why should this shit be different?
Yeah, watch this be the year that they actually succeed because everything is going completely against them. Watch the Jazz go in, win a few rounds, even though they hate each other. That would just be the story of the NBA. That's how you know the magic of Disney would be in the playoffs.
Dude, if the Jazz won rounds with an S, I'd shake my head. It's not happening.
I'm not going to shave my head, but how about this? I'll cut my hair to the length that yours is.
Dude, that would be worth the price of admission right there.
So now you're just going to root for the Jazz, right?
No, F them.
Oh, my God. No, but now let's go to
any
leagues.
Team where, you have to have the owner come out and tell the fans, hey, stop being racists.
Yeah, no, that's just like stop being racist. But then you have James Dolan on the other side of the coin.
Oh, my God.
That I think I screamed on him for a matter of 10 minutes a couple of weeks back. Because he wouldn't even put out a statement. And then the email that he sends to his employees is, and I quote, I am not qualified, or we as a company aren't qualified to speak on social justice matters. Meanwhile, he's the owner of Cablevision. So, I mean.
Well, no, his dad is the owner of Cablevision.
Yeah. But
he's just the owner of the Garden and the Knicks and the Rangers.
So he's basically the owner of a 90s cultural icon that pretty much was the entertainment and social justice, thing of the city. It's the Knicks were the one thing that brought the city together. That was the one team that we all agreed on. Giants and Jet fans kept arguing. Knicks and Nets fans didn't really argue because the Nets fans.
There were no Nets fans.
Yeah, they're just like this percentage of people that are over here that just want to be counterculture for no reason. At least that's what the Nets were in the 90s. Now they actually have a little bit of a footing because the Knicks can't get out of their own way for the past 20 years. So, of course, James Dolan would say something racist, stupid, disgusting, and push his workplace initiatives. Remember, I think we both spoke about this when we were competing in a certain contest for a certain set of people, that $12 million settlement because of his wonderful equality in the workplace initiatives that allowed that young lady to be treated fairly and not get flirted with by Isaiah Thomas, right?
Anuka Brown Sanders.
Yep.
Yeah, yep. And the best part about it was even after they laid out, $30 million in that settlement?
Yeah.
He kept Isaiah on. I mean, basically he had to be forced to get rid of Isaiah Thomas.
Forget just the coronavirus that's been going through and what everything's going on now with the rest of the sports. Don't forget what happened at the very beginning of the year with the Houston Astros. Don't forget what happened with that whole cheating from three.
Hey, who can forget it? Or when the Red Sox cheated, or when the Yankees cheated, or when the Diamondbacks cheated, or when the Cubs cheated, or when the Brewers cheated, or when the Indians cheated. Because here's the funny thing. They all cheat.
Yeah.
And Rob Manfred found out the hard way he did not have the testicular fortitude to see through going after every single team. He thought he was going to be a hard go after the Astros, give them like Major League Baseball's version of the death penalty, make them wear the scarlet letter. And then after the fact, he realized, wow, this is really bad for baseball. Maybe I shouldn't have opened this can of worms. Because you remember, the Astros on no less than 5 occasions had been vindicated by Major League Baseball when teams had asked about, oh, we think they're cheating, and baseball always said, no, they're not. It wasn't until Mike Fiers came out and publicly did that article with Evan Drellich and Ken Rosenthal in The Athletic that he laid the groundwork, basically exposed Major League Baseball for their cover-up and their lies, and that's why the Astros got hammered. If you want to know why in 2017 the Red Sox and the Yankees each got those slack fines for cheating, the Red Sox with the Apple Watch, the Yankees with the dugout phone, wasn't because they were doing it and baseball didn't know. It's because they ratted on each other to the media.
Yep.
If they didn't take it to the media, you never know about it. And that's why this whole issue with the letter from baseball to the Yankees is a big deal. Because if you remember, back at that time, Rob Manfred had released a statement saying that apparently players in the league did not understand the rule that using the technology in the video room in real time to decipher signs was in fact illegal. So they clarified their position. That's why, the Yankees and the Red Sox, like, it's kind of been swept under the rug because baseball gave them the, okay, we're going to give you a pass. But the next team to do it, they're going to get crushed. Well, the next team to do it, well, they've all been doing it. So this is the crazy thing. We know now from The Athletic and the New York Times and all the investigative journalism that they do, the Yankees have been using the video room to steal signs since 2015. When Carlos Beltran got to the Astros in 2017, he told them your sign-stealing techniques are outdated.
Wow.
So, remember, baseball exonerated Jeff Luhnow of any wrongdoing. The entire thing was born in his office, as we learned from the New York Times. So, baseball has lied to us, even when trying to give us we're going to do the truth, and we're going to get cheating out of the game, and they're still lying to us about it.
And
then they tried to tell us only 2 people on the Red Sox team were cheating, and nobody else knew.
Oh, yeah, right.
You gotta be born friggin' yesterday to believe that.
Yep,
So,
and you have to be born. And Pat, you got to be born yesterday. And John, I'm gonna let you get one of the last words on this because we got about 5 minutes before the clock goes off. The MLB is a bunch of liars. Rob Manfred is the biggest no-ball person on the planet when it comes to actually running his league. That's why anybody who wonders, well, why didn't the players work it out with the MLB? Because Rob Manfred doesn't have any sort of conviction. There's nothing about that man that says to me that he would ever follow his word. I don't think he's ever followed his word once as commissioner.
Whose respect has he earned? Has he earned anybody's
no one's respect? And John, I know you got thoughts on this because we were talking on the phone before. You were yelling and screaming about it. Let it off your chest, Beast. Let it off your chest.
Rob Manfred is going to single-handedly self-destruct Major League Baseball. We've already talked about this in the past, John. I think it's going to happen. We're heading for a strike, and forget it being the 1994 strike. This is going to be 3 times as bad as 94. You're not going to maybe see half a season locked out, maybe a whole season gets locked out. We're already going to lose this season by the looks of it just because of a pandemic, and Manfred couldn't reach an agreement with the players. The owners and players kept going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Manfred never earned the respect of Major League Baseball, and by the end of all of this, he could get voted out.
Well, you got to keep this in mind. After the owners mutinied against Faye Vincent in 1992, the commissioner's office has changed. It is no longer the independent overseer of all things baseball. The commissioner's office no longer has power over the owners and the players as it once did. Now the commissioner's office, after they installed one of their own and Bud Selig back then, and then, their labor lawyer and Rob Manfred after Bud Selig retired, Rob Manfred is now to baseball what Roger Goodell is to the NFL. He's just the mouthpiece of the owners. They are his boss. So therefore, whatever his position is, has been told to him by the 30 men who own the teams in baseball. Rob Manfred has no authority that the owners don't give him. He can't force the owners to do things that he wants them to do. He's not Bart Giamatti. He's not Pete Rozelle. He's not Kennesaw Mountain Landis. He has no authority to hammer the owners the way that independent commissioners once could impose their wills. So he is at their beck and call to do what they want. And in this situation, where you don't have unified owners, you've got owners who don't want to play at all. You've got owners who want to play and they're fine with pro rata. You've got other owners that are trying to penny pinch. Every time you see the numbers come out about Major League Baseball and, if we play a game, it costs this much money, like $1.3 billion, $1.3 million to play a game, but we only make $980,000 in local TV revenue. And so therefore, we don't have the money. Boy, they avoid that national TV money like crazy, don't they? Because that national TV money is $3 billion.
And the players
and when you prorate that $3 billion, you're talking about adding basically another $1 billion to the pie that gets split up among all 30 teams. That, where'd that money come from? What money? I don't know what you're talking about. And while they're sitting here crying poverty, on one hand, you've got TBS, who only carries a handful of playoff games, now upping their contract with Major League Baseball during a pandemic where no games are going on, from $310 million to $500 million a year to cover what? The wild card game in the divisional round? And that's just TBS. That's not ESPN. That's not Fox. That's just TBS.
Yep.
And then on the other hand, because you got Ricketts out in Chicago saying how there's biblical losses. They're not losses. All right. And then you got Bill DeWitt in St. Louis saying, baseball's really just not that profitable anymore. Man,
wow.
10 years ago, the Cardinals were worth about $480 million. Now they're worth $2.2 billion. How many non-profitable businesses improve $1.7 billion in net worth in 10 years? Because, damn it, I want him.
You know what? I'm just going to wrap it up with this, right? Tony Clark did the smartest thing he could have ever done when he said, we're not negotiating anymore. Just tell us where and when to show up, and we'll be there. Pat, thank you for coming on to the show, man.
He backed Manfred into a corner.
Yep.
And that's why, Manfred now has to worry about, wow, if we implement the season, they're going to file a grievance. And if they file a grievance, we might have to open our books, which we've never done. So they don't want that. This is the part where the owners cave.
And this is where we learn about Manfred. He has no balls. He has no cojones. He can't lead. That's his biggest weakness, and it just got exposed.
And with that, we're going to wrap up the segment. I want to thank Pat Creighton. Pat, tell them where they can hear you. Tell them all the places online, on the dial.
All right, well, you can get late hits weeknights, 7 to 9 p.m. Central Time, ESPN 97.5 Houston on the ESPN Houston app, at ESPN975.com. You can find me on Twitter at PCreighton1.
All right, Pat, thank you for coming on the show. Greatly appreciate it.
Thanks, Pat.
You got it, fellas. Take care.
All right, this was Downtown Sports, and we'll be right back with our third segment right after this. And we're back on Downtown Sports. I'm John Schiavone, the Mouth of the South, along with my co-host, the Beast of the East, Jonathan Perriente. Want to thank Pat Creighton for hopping aboard. but we never got to do this in the first part of the show. So, Johnny, where can they hear us?
You can listen to us on 8 different sites: Spotify, Anchor, Radio Public, Overcast, Pocket Casts, Breaker, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. We are live on every one of those sites. We hope to have more as we go. You can hear us every Tuesday and Wednesday, Downtown Sports.
All right, so let's get that clock up, because we're actually going to change up a little bit with this last segment. We were going to go into the NBA, but I figured we went into a little bit with Mr. Creighton and the whole down south plan and how Disney went through. But I saw some stuff in the news. I sent it to you, John, because I only read the headlines, okay? This is going to be one of those segments, right? And I'm sorry that I'm kind of throwing you into this at the last second, John and Shane. Shane Sullivan behind the glass, Tony Manville, and Chris DeLarge, our researchers. Shouts to you guys. Thanks so much for what you do. Let's get this on the road. So I think Shane has the articles, and you do too. And we're going to actually go into the NFL, because there's been a lot of interesting news about Colin Kaepernick. Now, I heard something about he's working out in San Diego, and then I heard the number one person in the United States had something to say. I purposely did not read any of the things about Colin Kaepernick because I wanted to give everybody the live reaction. Let's hit that clock, Downtown Sports. Let's get after it.
4 years. You believe how long that took? 4 years. Kaepernick took a knee, protesting. And now here we are 4 years later, and now you're seeing a change, a complete change, 180 degrees. The President of the United States all of a sudden now had a complete 180 when it comes to Colin Kaepernick. Now he says he would support Kaepernick coming back.
Wait, what? He said that?
President Trump said he would support Kaepernick coming back now, compared to 4 years ago when he was absolutely furious about NFL players kneeling.
I believe the quote was, "Get that son of a off the field," right?
If you can go back in time a little bit.
I think he said that at one of those crazy campaign rallies where everybody wore the stupid red hats and held up the signs and screamed, "Lock her up." I think that's when Trump said that. What prompted Donald Trump, our fine American president, who we all respect so very, very much, what did he, this beacon of intelligence, have to say?
As we take a look at it, he wrote a little statement. If he deserves it, he should, Trump said when asked if Kaepernick should get another shot in the NFL. If he has the playing ability, he started off great, and then he didn't end up very great in terms of a player. He was terrific in his rookie year. I think he was very good in his second year. And then something happened. So his playing wasn't up to snuff. Wow.
And then I think he finished off with
very interesting words.
And then he said, on top of that, the answer is absolutely I would. As far as kneeling, I would love to see him get another shot. But obviously, he has to be able to play well. If he can't play well, I think it would be very unfair.
It would be very unfair that this guy is getting another opportunity to play when he never should have been out of the league for 4 years in the first place.
Yeah. But what?
What?
I kind of feel I'm stumped. I am flabbergasted. The only thing I would hear that would probably make my head explode even more is Roger Goodell convincing teams to sign Kaepernick. That'd be the only thing I could hear that would probably make my brain twist around a little more, being as that would be the complete 180 from the NFL from then to now, completely proving that they were incorrect, left Kaepernick out of the league, lied about it, did everything they could to keep him out. That would literally be Roger Goodell making that admission. So that would be the only thing I could, I'm not seeing this. Roger Goodell encourages NFL teams to sign Colin Kaepernick. You're kidding me.
Well, at least now some teams are beginning to come forward now with maybe willing to give that opportunity a shot.
And by the way, this is not that I am unhappy about this. I'm ecstatic that he's going to get another chance. It's just for 4 years, we had to endure, and specifically Colin Kaepernick, had to endure the ire of a country because he knelt at a piece of cloth. Nobody listened to what he said about Black Lives. Black Lives Matter was spurred a lot from Kaepernick's initial protest. And just now we're coming around to this? Really? Did it take 4 years? What did Goodell say?
Well, if we're talking about back to what he had said of we were wrong to have not taken this issue into more, that was from a few days ago where he brought that up.
Yeah, but what is he saying about encouraging teams to sign Kaepernick? What's the quote?
Well, listen, if he wants to resume his career in the NFL, then obviously it's going to take a team to make that decision. But I welcome that. Support a club making that decision and encourage them to do that. If his efforts are not on the field but continuing to work in this space, we welcome him to that table and to help us, guide us, help make us better, help us make better decisions about the kind of things that need to be done in the communities. We've invited him in before, and we want to make sure that everybody's welcome at that table and trying to help us deal with some very complex, difficult issues that have been around for a long time.
We invited him before. That entire statement was cool. And then the whole, we invited him before, like to say, hey, we tried, guys. No, you didn't.
If they're talking about that little tryout that he had beforehand, like maybe, 1 or 2 years ago?
And then they changed the date and the time on him, 48 hours in advance, and the location as well, correct? They completely changed all that and then expected Kaepernick to completely change his plans from what he had originally scheduled with the NFL to do, that he was going to host his own private workout. No. The NFL wanted to host the workout and control who was allowed in and who wasn't, control media presence at said workout. And you never invited him to the table, Roger. You never did. I mean, you never invited Colin Kaepernick to the table. Never once. I mean, aside from that ridiculous, Man of the Year humanitarian award that you threw at him after you threw him out of the NFL unceremoniously by calling him a dog who hates police. He's not a dog who hates police. He didn't kneel to the flag because he doesn't like the flag. He kneeled at the flag in subjugation to the flag because he still respects said flag, but he's not free in this country as a black man. How come no one else understands the rationale behind the kneeling? So I just wanted to put that out there, explain it real easy so that everybody can understand it's not an insult. It's not a lack of respect. In a way, it's showing respect, but it's also acknowledging the lack of freedom that they have in the country today. And that's why people kneel. That's why they knelt in 2016. And 4 years later, I shouldn't be having to explain this to people. It shouldn't take a guy getting kneeled on to death for people to finally wake up to what Colin Kaepernick was saying all these years.
Well, now that Kaepernick is back, we'll find out exactly when a team actually gives him a chance. But it's good to see that now teams are kind of starting to throw their hat in the ring and at least make an attempt now to give him an opportunity. Now, mainly the Chargers have been one of those teams looking at him. They're putting him on a tryout list. They haven't signed him, but
Coach Anthony Lynn list.
Just like a list to try out for the team. But okay. Coach Anthony Lynn has been very vocal saying he fits our system. So when you hear someone say he fits our system and how we want, he has that type of play that we want. That's it's a very encouraging sign. You'll have him back on the West Coast where he began his career. He was in San Francisco. Now you put him in possibly in Los Angeles. And I think if you look at the situation with the Chargers now, they did draft a new rookie quarterback in Herbert. We don't know what he's going to become this year yet, and maybe it's better not rush him to a starting job. If you get Kaepernick on the team, maybe he could be the starter. Herbert can sit a year or two, learn from Cap,
or
the opportunity for him to take over is there.
He also has to compete with Tyrod Taylor.
All right.
Shane Sullivan, our engineer,
Thanks
with
for that
that.
one.
So
Yeah.
Tyrod Taylor, Herbert, and now Kaepernick. That is going to be a very interesting situation, a very interesting quarterback battle, because Tyrod Taylor, I believe, is a young man who really never got a fair shake as a starter. I feel like Tyrod Taylor has the skill to be a proper NFL quarterback. Kaepernick and Herbert, that's going to be interesting, because both of those guys have the same type of skill sets. If you actually look at Herbert in comparison to Kaepernick, they do very similar things. Both quarterbacks fit their system. I think Kaepernick, when he was playing, had more agility, a little more strength to his arm, a little more strength in his legs than Herbert does, but Herbert has the accuracy that Kaepernick never had. The problem with Colin Kaepernick was interception rate, interception rate, interception rate. Pick after pick after pick. He'll have a few games where he throws maybe one pick in 4 games, and then he'll have 3 starts in a row where he throws like 12 picks. That's the problem with Kaepernick. That was my reasoning as to why the NFL owners could be as selective as they were with Colin Kaepernick, because he did come with issues even when he was in his prime.
Actually, I will say this with Kaepernick. His numbers are actually not bad at all. He only had 30 picks to 72 touchdowns.
I understand that, but in his last couple of years, you were seeing 3-4 interception games, especially as the pressure was building on Kaepernick and the whole Harbaugh system falling apart. If you think that didn't affect Colin Kaepernick, you've got another thing coming.
He was never I don't think he was ever the same losing the Harbaugh Bowl. I don't think he's been the same quarterback since he lost that Super Bowl.
No.
A few years ago. He's not been the same quarterback since.
He hasn't been, and he hasn't been the same quarterback since Harbaugh hasn't been his coach. Now, then on top of that, you add the protest, him kneeling. A lot of teams don't want to go near him. They think he's a liability risk. They think he is a public relations risk. And that was the problem. When social justice was only a public relations risk in the minds of NFL owners, that kept a young man out of the league who was good enough to start on at least half of the NFL teams. If he was still around and still playing and still producing at the same rate that he was producing at when he was playing for San Francisco, I'd say he was maybe the 14th or 15th best starter in the league. I'm not saying he was the best. I'm not saying he was the worst, though. He had the physical skill sets. I think if you put him under a proper coaching staff in a good situation that wasn't toxic and volatile like San Francisco's was, you would have a much better quarterback in Kaepernick. So to me, the experience in the Super Bowl, the experience in the two NFC championship games, that speaks volumes. I think Tyrod Taylor might be jettisoned to another team. I think you could see a situation where Herbert and Kaepernick could both be utilized in an offense. Remember, Colin Kaepernick does have other skills besides being a quarterback.
He can run the ball.
Definitely run the ball. He can catch the ball, too. So there's going to be plenty of uses for Colin Kaepernick, even if he isn't the starter for the Chargers. I think Kaepernick has a lot of uses that could be used all along an offense, and not like when we were trying to keep Tim Tebow in the league somehow and say, oh, he has other skills besides being a quarterback. No. Kaepernick has skills. He has field vision. He knows where to run the ball. He knows how to pick running lanes and adjust blocking schemes. That I know Kaepernick can do. He could do a running offense. So
now the question will be this. Will an NFL team come forward and give him a shot to not only try out, but to sign him? That will be the biggest question that we're going to see. And already, Anthony Lynn has mentioned teams are crazy not to have Kaepernick on workout lists. The Chargers are willing to do it. Doesn't mean
if I were the Pittsburgh Steelers, I'd be immediately looking at Colin Kaepernick.
The Eagles, I think, are maybe going to take a look at him. We did see the Eagles
with Carson Wentz. Look, Carson Wentz is your starting quarterback. That guy gets injured every other year for at least 6 games. You need a capable backup if you're the Eagles. And in fact, I think most NFL teams, the backup quarterback now has actually started to evolve as a position. You are seeing backups come in more and more and more every single year. As quarterbacks get hurt more and more, I think our ability to diagnose injury has led to more quarterback injuries. MRI x-rays. People say, oh, in the old days, people broke their leg and they just put more tape on it and still went on to play. Well, now that you see a torn meniscus in your knee, thanks to imaging system that allows you to see that your quarterback just isn't up to snuff to play right now. You need a backup in this league. You can't go into a game, an NFL game, and not have an offense that is ready to perform. That is just unacceptable in today's NFL. Back in the old days, the NFL was all about defense, all about stopping offenses and sacks and hits. Today, the NFL is about long touchdown passes, acrobatic catches, 80-yard plays, punt returns for touchdowns, offense. This league has become so offensively stacked that a defense that only gives up 24 points a game is considered good in today's NFL. So Colin Kaepernick should have a job in today's NFL, whether it's a starter, whether it's a backup. And a backup in today's NFL isn't necessarily the sitting on the bench death sentence that it was in the late 90s, early 2000s, late 2000s.
I'm curious to see, and this is how I'm going to wrap the show up with this. I think in a couple of weeks, we're really going to see if the wheels go into motion for someone to take a shot at Kaepernick. If this happens, then I think the NFL is set, and I think all will be forgiven for Goodell. All will be forgiven for the NFL.
I don't think so, but it's a good first step.
To an extent. Now, if Goodell
giving him an actual shot to play.
If Goodell even comes forward with everything else that he's promised before even the Kaepernick signing, when it happens, of course, the NFL might be the one sport that could really save us through a time that we're in right now with COVID-19, et cetera. Let's see what happens with Kaepernick. I'd say let's give it a couple of weeks, but we're going to see some move for him made soon. With that wraps up today's edition of Downtown Sports. We want to thank our special guest, Patrick Creighton, for joining us. I am Jonathan Perriente, the Beast of the East, the Mouth of the South, John Schiavone. You can listen to us once again on Anchor, Spotify, Radio Public, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Overcast, and Pocket Casts. We will have our next new home coming hopefully soon. You can listen to us every Tuesday, Wednesday for live rants episodes, and we have something very special in mind for next week.
We'll tell you about that soon, but baseball fans, you might want to tune in next week to a special 2-hitter edition of Downtown Sports. Until then, I'm the Mouth of the South, John Schiavone. That was Beast of the East, Jonathan Perriente. For Shane, for Chris, for Tony,